Marinero, the Sick Podcast. I'll give you an update of what happened earlier today at practice as well. Now that the trade deadline has come and gone, where should the focus be and what should the focus be between now and the end of the year? I can think of 5 things that I want to talk to you about as well. The Executive VP of Hockey Ops and the General Manager talked about one player in particular in their live Q&A where they said, this guy, he can really help us a lot. Who are they talking about? I'll tell you next on the Sick Podcast.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinero, the sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
And now a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Sports entertainment like no other. Brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature, and La Cage. If the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to La Cage. The menu will surprise you.
And welcome. It is the Sick Podcast brought to you by, once again, 8.6 Beer, intense by nature, like me, the beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. And La Cage, if the last time you went to La Cage was when the Habs won the Cup back in 93, what have you been doing for the last 29 years? You got to go back to La Cage. I know when you can go. Saturday, March 26th, because I, Marinero, will be there at La Cage de Carrie on Rue des Jockeys, and I'll be watching the Canadiens hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if you're looking for a place to watch the game, the best sports bar in the city and in the province, join me at La Cage. The menu will surprise you, and my company will entertain you. I promise you that. All right, okay. Update from today earlier on at practice. Carey Price, who's been practicing over the last little while here, was not at practice. We were told that he was out with an illness, non-COVID related. We hope Carey's going to be okay. 2 players had a therapy day. Jonathan Drouin and Nick Suzuki. As for Brendan Gallagher, he was back with the team and with his teammates, but he did not practice today. All right, okay. So now that the trade deadline has come and gone, where should the focus be between now and the end of the year? Look, at the end of the day, I could end up giving you 10 things or 10 areas, 15, 20, 25. But let's simplify it a little bit here. And because we also have certain time constraints, I mean, we're not going to go on forever either, right? By the way, this podcast is sick. Tell all your buddies about it. Follow us on all our social media channels, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at The Sick Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free, and you can be notified on all social media apps when we upload an episode or when we go live. All right, okay. So Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes had a Q&A yesterday, along with Chantal Maccabee, who was asking them questions that came courtesy of the fans. And someone asked about Jordan Harris. So I'm going to tell you right now that out of the 5 things where the focus should be between now and the end of the year, one of them definitely should be on Jordan Harris, a player the Canadiens drafted almost 4 years ago, a player who is a great prospect, a very good puck-moving defenseman who can log minutes, who's playing at Northeastern. And Jeff, Kent Hughes was asked about it, saying, where do you stand right now with Jordan Harris? And he said, well, the reason they can't sign him, even if they would have wanted to, they have to wait until the end of the year because NCAA players can't have agents. It's agents who'll be able to obviously talk contract with a team. And so you cannot talk to a player now because they cannot have agents. And what they can have is family advisors who can consult, who can advise, but who cannot work out a contract with a team. So long story short, they have to wait till the end of Jordan Harris's season, and then they can announce something. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a done deal. It's basically unofficial, but it's a done deal. Jordan Harris and the Canadiens, it's done. He's going to be signing with the Canadiens. Look, we knew the Canadiens had the inside track. We knew they were in a very good situation because Kent Hughes used to coach Jordan Harris. He's known Jordan Harris for a very long time. Both his sons play with Jordan Harris at Northeastern. Marty St. Louis' son plays with Jordan Harris at Northeastern. Jordan Harris is going to sign with the Montreal Canadiens. So out of the 5 things or 5 areas where I say the focus should be between now at the end of the end of the year, Jordan Harris is one of them. Number 2, I talked to you about Carey Price, who didn't practice today because he's ill, non-COVID related. It would be good to see Carey Price play games between now and the end of the year. So we know, the fan base knows, and the Canadiens know exactly where he's at with his recovery. So where is he at? Can he still play? Does he still have pain? Is he the goalie that we saw last year in the Stanley Cup final? Or will he be the goalie that we saw for 3 of the last 4 regular seasons, whose save percentage was not in the top 45 or not in the top 50? Long story short, what you do know is this: when you're revamping, you don't want to spend to the cap. Carey Price is paid $10.5 million and will be for the next 4 seasons after this season. I think we've all figured it out that the Canadiens would like to part ways with Carey Price and his contract, even if Carey Price would want to finish his career here or not. I think, seeing as the Canadiens are not going to be a Stanley Cup contender in the next year, I mean, let's face it, they won't say it, but they traded Toffoli for a prospect who may not be on this team next year. They traded Ben Sherratt for a prospect who may not be on this team this year. They traded Brett Kulak for a prospect who may not be on this team, or defenseman who will be on this team, but he'll be a number 6. And they traded Arturi Lehkonen for a prospect who may not be on this team next year. Their prospects, whether it's Jordan Harris, whether it's Caden Gooley, we just talked about Justin Barron, and the list goes on and on. Matthias Norlinder is another one. They may not be on this team next year. So if you're not going to win the Stanley Cup, you shouldn't spend to the cap, and Carey Price shouldn't be your goalie. But it would be good to know if he can play some games. That'll be a focus point for sure, to see if he can get in games and to see how he can play. Nick Suzuki is probably the most important, or one of the most important out of all of them, because in that Q&A, Kent Hughes was asked about Nick Suzuki, and so was Jeff Gordon. Watch carefully, or listen in to what they had to say.
There's a question here: where would you say Nick Suzuki is in his development?
Well, I'm a big fan of Nick Suzuki's game, and Nick Suzuki as an individual and future leader. We've heard that he admires Patrice Bergeron and wants to play in that vein. And I represented Patrice for almost 22 years now. I see a lot of parallels in terms of character. They're quiet leaders. They're very serious about their profession. Nick has certain attributes that are probably, he has an advantage over Patrice. I think he'll continue to learn how to play on the defensive side of it to get to Patrice, but he's a great role model to aspire to, and I see Nick Suzuki as the number 1 center in the NHL.
I think Suzuki's probably when I first got here, I had heard that he was a good player and, maybe a quality second-line player. But the more we're watching him, the more we're seeing him. He's getting better every game, and that's huge for us if he can go to that next level. So probably him.
All right, there you have it. Kent Hughes says he sees Nick Suzuki as a number 1 centerman. Jeff Gordon says it'll be great for us if he can go to the next level. Hughes compares him to Patrice Bergeron, says he has work to do on the defensive side, but he sees the parallels other than that and actually thinks he may have an attribute or two that could be an advantage over Bergeron. That's huge praise by Hughes and Gordon. So another focus point. We talked about signing Jordan Harris. That'll be made official at the end of his season. Don't worry about that. Carey Price, getting him back, making him play some games to see what kind of goalie he is, and whether or not he's still good enough to garner some interest from some teams who think they're a goalie away from winning the Stanley Cup. Number 3, Nick Suzuki taking his game to another level and really proving Kent Hughes right that he is a number 1 centerman, because we know it's very hard to acquire a number 1 centerman. More often than not, you have to draft one. The draft's not here yet. We don't know if the Canadians will draft the number 1 centerman. They may end up with the 3rd pick or 4th pick. They might not even end up picking a centerman. And if they pick a centerman with the 1st or the 2nd pick, it might take 3, 4, 5 years maybe for that player to come into his own. So Suzuki taking his game to another level, keeping it there, maintaining it there, showing consistency, being a better defensive player, that's huge for the Canadians. It should be a focus point. Number 4, increasing the value of players they want to trade. We saw how good the coaching change has been for players that they don't want to trade. They don't want to trade Nick Suzuki. St. Louis has been great for his game. They don't want to trade Cole Caulfield. St. Louis has been great for his game. They don't want to trade Romanov. St. Louis has been great for his game. Heck, they don't even want to trade Rem Pitlick. St. Louis has been great for his game. And he's been great for a lot of players' games as well. But now there's certain players that might not be part of this equation going forward. We know they want to trade Jeff Petrie. We know they didn't trade Jeff Petrie because they didn't get what they wanted for him because his value was at a low. They absolutely need Petrie to play much better hockey between now and the end of the year. Whether or not they want to trade Brendan Gallagher, they need Brendan Gallagher to play much better hockey between now and the end of the year because, let's face it, Gallagher at $6.5 million for the next 5 years after this season, if he's not going to be in the top 6 and he's not going to score 25-plus goals, at that point, there's only so much you're willing to pay for leadership. And Gally, everyone loves you, but it wouldn't make business sense for the Canadians. You have to raise the value of a Yoel Armia. You have to raise the value of a Jonathan Drouin. These are players that most likely will be dealt either in the offseason or by trade deadline day next season. And the 5th focus point should be establishing chemistry, either as a line or as a duo. We know they've already done it with the line of Suzuki, Caulfield, and Anderson. We know that duo in particular, Suzuki and Caulfield, have established chemistry. Now find maybe a pairing on defense and have chemistry there. Find a pairing, a duo on another line and have chemistry there. This way, when the season starts next year, you have a couple of players who already have chemistry, and it's easier to fill in the blanks at that point, and it's an easier starting point for you. So recapping, the top 5 focus points between now and the end of the year, in no particular order. Signing Jordan Harris is number 1. Having Carey Price play games to see where he's at and what kind of goalie he is now is number 2. The emergence of Nick Suzuki and hoping that he can take his game to another level so that he becomes that number 1 centerman with consistency, because it's easier to fill the 2 hole than it would be to fill the 1 hole. That's number 3. Number 4, increasing the value of players that you want to trade so you can end up getting more in return. And number 5, chemistry, building chemistry, having duos either on defense or duos on a line or even a line, a complete line. Those are the 5 focus points. I'm Marinaro, manscaped.com. Use code SICK20 for 20% off because they give you a shave that's as smooth as a baby's bottom or as smooth as my delivery when I bring you this podcast. And for matrixhomefitness.ca, who allowed me to go from 3 chins to 2 in the last 2 months, hoping I can go from 2 chins now to 1, like most of the world. Bring it home. Discover a club quality workout in the comfort of your own home and visit matrixhomefitness.ca. I'll end it with this. Now, what the fans want, I'll tell you what the fans would really want more so than anything else. Cole Caulfield has scored 12 goals in 18 games under Martin St. Louis. He has 13 on the season in 48 games. The rookies who lead in goals this year are Lucas Raymond of Detroit and Michael Bunting of Toronto. They both have 20 goals apiece. Bunting has it in 62 games. Raymond has it in 63 games. Bunting scores 0.32 goals per game. Raymond scores 0.317 goals per game. Cole Caulfield scores 0.27 goals per game. Think about this. The Canadiens have 19 games left. If Caulfield can do what he just did, which is score 12 in 18 games, let's just say he scores 13 in 19 games, at that point, he's going to finish with 26 goals. Will Bunting and Raymond score 6 more goals between now and the end of the year? Look, make no mistake, the odds are against Cole Caulfield. I wouldn't bet on it, but I wouldn't bet against them either. And I know that all the fans are pulling for him. If there's one guy who can do it, it's him. He's led all his teams in scoring at every level, and you don't score 12 goals in 18 games by fluke. Cole, you did it before. Do it again. All the best to you, and all the best to everyone watching. Thanks so much for the support. I hear you loud and clear. Tell your friends about this podcast. It's sick. Like me. Embrace the tank, baby.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by 8.6, Intense by Nature, and Lacage. If the last time you went to Lacage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Lacage. The menu will surprise you.